Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to the Planet FPL Fan View. Welcome one of our correspondents onto the podcast to discuss current matters at their club. And it's been a summer of change for the bees of Brentford. Let me introduce you to Tom Medd. Hey, Tom.
I'm good. No, I'm good, thank you. I was gonna make some awful joke to start with about Tottenham, but we'll get into it, I'm sure.
You normally do, mate. I've nicked your manager, mate.
I know. Well, I mean, we discussed it months back, and you were like, well, actually, I think if I remember rightly, months back you were saying you weren't that interested or keen on it, but now it's
No, no, it wasn't.
what
But he's there now, so I've got to get on with
he's there now, yeah.
it. Well, I mean, the only thing I'd say is I researched him, Iriola, and Silva quite a lot, and I was drawn to Frank a little bit more, but I'm not kind of pro it or against it. I mean, you can give us your thoughts on maybe the Tottenham aspect in terms of what you think in a sec, but
Yeah.
firstly, obviously, his legacy at Brentford. I mean, it goes down as the greatest manager in the club's history, I'm guessing.
I mean, it's hard to argue against it, really. I mean, it's pretty untouchable what he's done and then being able to continue to do at the club. Obviously, it's always a hard one with Brentford because there's obviously such a big it's not just him, it's like a unit. So, it's Frank, but also, Phil Giles and the team, and obviously Matthew Benham. There's all of them together as one almost. But he's the face and the sort of the man that stands in front of the camera every week, and obviously the man that picks the team. And yeah, what he's achieved and where we've got to, and going from a few years ago where we're talking about are we going to stay up, season syndrome, and we had those discussions of, oh, are we going to do it? Are we not going to do it? And then obviously last season, obviously on the season before, it got a little bit ropey, and he was always the steady ship where I think, but hopefully you agree with me that it was always like, well, we'll be fine. There's no way we're going to go down. And then obviously this year it just pushed on again. And I think my main disappointment is how well we finished last year and the potential with the team now, what we could have done, what we still can do, but what we could have done with a sort of steady ship this year.
Does that feel
And
like
that's
not possible at this moment?
um it's it's so undecided and nobody
Yeah.
knows, if that makes sense, because as we're all aware, the man that's coming in has never managed a team before. So
No, we'll get to him in a bit.
yeah,
It's so difficult to try and analyze what this might be. What would be Frank's greatest achievement then? Would it be like keeping you up at the start, getting you promoted in the first place, or the fact that he'd stabilised you like a part of the furniture in the league, mate?
I think I think you'll never forget the playoff final and obviously taking us up in the first place. That sort of getting us there is half the battle. And obviously that was a pretty great match to watch. So I think that still will, it probably is the best thing, so it's still, the thing I remember the most. 'Cause, as much as, keeping us in the Premier League is great, it's sort of, well, in a few years' time, no one will remember us finishing in 10th. It will just be distant memory, but no one will ever forget getting promoted into the Premier League in the first place. So probably is that. Um, and a shame a few results didn't go away at the end, is because I think getting us into Europe would have been, that may have surpassed it. So
I thought you were going to do it, mate. I
me
really did.
too. Yeah,
I'd
me
been banging
too.
the drum for a few weeks. You were just absolutely on a wave, and your fixture run was really good at the end.
Yeah,
So, I mean, the defeat to Fulham was shocking. I mean, it didn't help, obviously, the Palace result.
no,
The day before as well, I think
yeah,
was a little bit of a mental blow in that push for eighth. You may well have done it if City had won that cup final. I think it might have unfolded a little bit differently. I mean, in terms of highs, from my perspective, from a neutral, it feels like you've beat everybody.
yeah,
I think of the wins at Stamford Bridge, obviously, will be particularly fond, I guess. The first night victory against Arsenal, the
yeah,
win at
definitely.
the late win at the Etihad, beating Liverpool at home. Um, you've won at my place. You've beat everyone. It feels like at some stage you beat all the top teams
Yeah,
somewhere. Is there anyone
did
you
the
haven't beaten?
no, I
I mean,
think
you've beaten all the top teams anyway.
yeah, it must be. I think, and what they did the double over City when they won the league as well, which is always a always a good one to remember.
Yeah, we're not counting the
No one else
final day of
achieved
the
it.
season when
Yeah,
City
of
were
course we
drunk.
are.
Have you beaten
Yeah.
Villa? Just trying to run that in my mind. Villa maybe might be one missing
Um,
because I'll have Villa fans raging if you haven't beaten, mate.
I, I off the top of my head don't know.
Someone's going to say they're not big, but I'll say that they are. How do you think? Well, I guess first and foremost, at what point did you think shit he's going to go? And was it definitively a shit he's going to go? Because I guess it might have got to the point where we know factually, actually, he had an interview for the Villa job when I think
Yeah.
Steven Gerrard got appointed, I want to say.
And
And he
then
definitely had an interview for the Chelsea job as
yeah.
well.
Mhm.
Did it feel like it had gone past the point that he might go? Or did it always feel like an inevitability that as long as you kept doing well at some stage, this would happen?
I think I was always aware that he was in, every job that came up, he was rumored. And every time he spoke in the media, it was like, I'm not interested. And then at the end of the season, they did ask, and he, to be honest, bit quite hard back at the reporters and said, you know, why are we talking about this now? It's, the final day of the season. I'm talking about Brentford. And it was quite almost like an aggressive nibble back at them, which you don't really see too often from him. And so I was of the opinion, and obviously once Andrew had gone, that he would turn it down to us and he would stay. And the first sort of oh shit moment for me was when we signed Kelleher actually, because usually it would be a bit from Phil Giles, and then it'd be a bit from Frank, and then it would be a bit from the player, and that's always sort of the structure. We've just signed obviously Malambu from Feyenoord, and it's exactly the same. Bit from Phil, bit from Phil Giles, bit from Keith Andrews, and then a little bit from the player. And on the Kelleher signing, it was bit from Phil Andrews, bit from Kelleher, and that was it. And it was
Mm.
like, oh shit. Well,
We know he was involved in it though, because I've seen the interview with
yeah,
Kelleher where he said, I spoke to the manager at length, and I was thinking, you poor bastard, he ain't there now, mate.
yeah. No, I think it was when there was no quotes from Thomas Frank. That was my first moment of like, okay, this is now more likely he goes than stays. Um, but yeah, I think go back to sort of it's always been sort of the collective at Brentford, and so the manager is sort of more of the first team coach than obviously the manager. He gets involved with the signings, but it's a group decision. It's not just one person, and so it's obviously a huge loss, and the character's massive. And I didn't want him to go, but I also don't think it's the end of the world for us. And I mean, I've been getting messages from friends going like, "Oh, you're going down," and
Mm.
um, you know, go on, I'll take bets with you now that you're gonna get relegated next season. And I was like, yeah, I'll happily take those bets, and I'm still my normal, confident, positive. I think we'll be fine without him.
Good. I'm pleased to hear that. Do you think he's a good appointment for Tottenham? It might sound like
Yes,
an obvious question, but go on, elaborate on why.
I think he's exactly what you need after Ange, if that makes sense. I don't think he he's not like a big name appointment, so he's not going to be sort of like, oh, you're going to go. It felt like if you gave put in someone massive, then it would be so much pressure on him. I feel like because he doesn't have the name stature, he's. I think I've seen a lot of things saying like, oh, he's just the Brentford manager, and obviously what he's achieved is not that, but because he doesn't have that huge name status as someone like, when you've had like Conte's previously, Mourinho's, it almost feels like he might not have the same amount of pressure. And I feel like his real asset is working with the players in the squad. And there's obviously players that you guys have, like Archie Gray, Brennan Johnson, who we were obviously incredibly well linked with at points, and obviously players that he was keen to work with. And I think he's the sort of manager who will get the best out of those sort of players and the young players. I think he'll be really good for players like James Maddison and like Odebear and like the young players that you guys have, because I think he's just a really good man manager. And I think Ange was as well, but I think with Frank's style of play as well, it's a bit more defensive minded. But I think as we've seen this season, he's trying to be more free flowing and attacking. And obviously the amount of goals we scored. Um, but yeah, I think it's a good fit for Tottenham, and I think someone that if he gets enough time there, which hopefully he will, he'll be someone that could be there for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, it needs to see an upwards trajectory, I think, from the start. It's not like he's got to win his
Yeah.
first four games or anything
Well,
like that, but you've got to see the progress and the difference from last year.
is it
I,
almost like a no win for him though? Like, sorry, no lose for him because obviously he comes in obviously from a pretty bad league season for you
it
guys.
depends on your view, isn't it? Because there's the high of the trophy, and then there's the low of obviously what the league campaign is, and you'll get split opinions on it at the moment. I get a sense from people on the outside and neutrals that's a good appointment for Tottenham. Like most people say that, but I don't know if their vision of what Tottenham should be next year is possibly different to what Tottenham fans' vision should be. Because Tottenham fans' visions will be, well, it's back in the Champions League, and the minimum requirement will be to make sure you're back in it again next season. Now, that jump from 17th to 5th, let's call it,
Mm.
is massive, isn't it? There's no way of hiding it. You can say the Europa, but that's a huge jump. And I think there's a lot of people on the outside think, well, if Tottenham finish like 9th, 10th next year after this year, that's all right. That's not going to be the view from within Tottenham. And I guess the question to you is, do you think it's scalable for him to jump up to managing the Champions League and expectation to get in it again?
Um, so I chatted to some other Tottenham people recently, and I said, well, my prediction for you guys would be top seven at least, to be honest. And I think that he would be able to do that with the team you've got quite comfortably. Obviously, a few incomings, I'm sure there will be, but I can't see why he wouldn't be able to achieve that. And now whether that's enough for Tottenham, I don't know, but I assume it would be. You know, if you were in and around competing, then it's not a bad place to be.
No, I think it depends on the circumstance, doesn't it?
Yeah,
In terms of like if the rest of the expected top eight all perform well and we finish seventh, then we're back amongst it. And you go, yeah, that's fair enough. If a couple of them have a dip, then Tottenham have to be in there. I think would probably be the suggestion. So it doesn't matter a little bit on other teams as well. You mentioned about him being a bit more of a defensive coach. One of the things I really like him the more I looked at him is adaptability. People used
yeah,
to speak so much about when you got promoted about beforehand the BMW and how you used to attack. And then we saw this more physical version of you in the Premier League. You had the third season when you mentioned it was a real struggle. You had
yeah,
so many injuries. And then last year almost like seamlessly moved on from Tony.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
quite a feat actually.
I think for you guys, that I think the best thing he will bring is the fact that he changes so much in game. It's obviously we see changes in formation. It's been a bit more fixed this year with the 4-3-3. Um, but his changes in game, people don't see that. Obviously, you know, there's. I think the one I always allude to is usually when if Janot's playing, he's sitting in that sort of deep lying midfield position, and we'll bring off a centre back. If we're losing the game, we'll bring off a centre back. We'll throw on an attacker, and Janot will be playing this mixed hybrid role of centre mid to defend, you know, centre back, and all you got to think about is obviously you mentioned it quite a lot, but you know, someone like Romero, you know, centre back with a great passing ability. Do you see him sort of remored into
I think
defensive midfield
Romero
at
will just
points?
disappear up front if we're losing because
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what he
that's true,
tends to
exactly.
do.
Yeah, yeah. But he's so flexible mid game and just he changes. I think that's something that he is really good at, and something we will miss is that you know circumstantial on who you're playing, and it seems that every time we play someone different, it's a slight tweak or a slight change to have certain players playing versus certain players to make sure we get the most out of it.
It's interesting on Romero actually, since you'd mentioned him, because I think probably the media, it's worth saying, have been the most vocal about him being, oh, if Ange goes, I'm going to want to
Mm,
push on and stuff. I'm going to gather from all the discussions you and I have had in the past that he's really strong in terms of a people person
yeah,
and he'll get the team on side quite quickly because
I
there
think
will
so.
definitely be a group within that players who feel attached to what happened with Ange.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just look at the rapport of sort of after games. You know, he's out with the players. He's his dressing room talks that we've seen quite a few of this year, where they've released them sort of on social media. Like the team just seems to sort of really be one unit. There's not sort of splits in the camp. And when we've had sort of issues with certain players, they seem to have gone pretty quickly. It's sort of, you know, you're part of the team. And whether that's a Frankism or whether that's, you know, something more Brentford, um, related, it's hard to sort of tell completely. But obviously, just from the bits you see from Thomas Frank, he always seems a likable character, and everyone seems to, you know, there's not many people. I don't think there's anyone really you see on sort of online that goes, "Oh, I don't like that Thomas Frank. He's not very nice, is he?" He's
I,
always
I,
relatively positive.
I don't think. despite the size of my club, I don't think there's too many kind of like big time Charlies there, and like Romero might
Yeah,
be one,
no.
and it might be yes, be moved on, but it's quite a young group, and I think you've already referenced it. The idea that he can coach and develop what he's got might be the sort of situation Tottenham fans won't want to hear it, but that might be a lot of what this summer looks like. Let's focus on the replacement. When you first heard Keith Andrews' name, come on, honest.
Yeah, it was like, what on earth is going on? I think I spoke to Neil in the Slack channel, and he said, have you got your bleach ready? Referencing obviously the guys. Yeah, I was sort of like, because obviously first we were linked with Justin Cochran, and that seemed to be sort of like a done deal. The odds were slashed to sort of like, you know, um, less than 1-1. And you're going like, okay, right, well, this is interesting. And then you're reading into him, and you go, well, actually, he's a pretty decent looking coach, and this looks sort of like, the way we're going to go. And obviously, it's what we did for when Dean Smith left us and Thomas Frank came in. So you're going, okay, well, this sort of is interesting. This could be sort of the one. And then all of a sudden, it was, well, he's off to Tottenham, and it's like, okay, now all of a sudden, it's completely
Was
changed.
that almost a bigger blow in a
It
weird
was
way?
it was one of those where you sort of like, it felt like, and whether, we'll never know, but whether it was like Keith Andrews is the second choice. And at that point, you're going like, oh, crikey, like, surely we can find someone better. And that's the initial reaction, I think, because you go, like, oh, this is, well, surely it's not a good thing. We're picking our first assistant manager to become our new manager. And then all of a sudden he's going, no, thank you. I'm going with Frank. And then you're going, all of a sudden, it's the second, almost like the second choice assistant manager. It's like, well, what point do we turn from the senses you go, like, well, are we really just a small club? And we can't get anyone big. Is that the reason we have to get an assistant manager, or is it the Brentford way of doing things and the correct thing to do? And obviously, I'm sure hindsight will be a wonderful thing in 6 months' time, and when Keith Andrews is knocking on the door of Europe, and our final day game against Liverpool was a title decider. Um, but we don't know, and
It
it,
probably won't be Tom, just to
yeah,
break it
probably
to you.
not. No, I'm pretty sure I
I
know
mean, you
that
got
one.
City and Liverpool last two, haven't you?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's why I'm beating both. But it's a really strange one, because I think, I mean, in my eyes, Phil Giles and Matthew Benham can literally do no wrong. So if they say it's the right thing to do, then I'm 100% on board, fully supportive, and yeah, Keith Andrews will have my backing until he's sacked, to be honest.
Yeah, the football club's given you no reason to be truthfully fearful, I guess, because this has kind of worked before. I think there might be an element to that they didn't want to. You're not replacing a failed manager. Everything
Yeah,
went quite well, so you'd think, well, if we come in and then we get like a back three manager and we're going to play like this and do all these sort of things differently. I mean, we discussed about the scalability for Frank. Like, I have no idea if that's going to work out at Tottenham or not. That scalability of how well Keith Andrews is going to do, I definitely got no idea, because you and I right now, as it stands, have got no idea what even like favoured formation would be. I've watched interviews on club channels where he's asked, like, what's your philosophy and stuff like that. He wants to play. He says all the right things, all the things you'd want a manager to say, but there's very little given away. And the headline for the neutral will be, "You've appointed the free kick coach."
yeah, yeah, exactly. I think
That's the headline, isn't it?
I think it comes from sort of it's like the uninspired, like, Daily Mirror sort of headline is like, oh yeah, we've clearly just signed the next person that walks through the door. But when you look into what we've done previously, and in the like Matthew Benham reign, like, this isn't actually the first time we've appointed an assistant. So when Mark Warburton took the job, he was director of football at the time, and he'd previously applied for the manager's job. He hadn't got that, so they'd offered him the role as director of football. And then trying to get the right way around, I think when Yui Rosler left us, Mark Warburton was then appointed. And in that season, he got us, then we got up into the championship. And in his first season in charge, he took us to the playoffs. Um, Obviously, he then left, and other people came in, and predominantly ended up with Dean Smith. But yeah, it's not the first time we've done it. So it's one of those where I think a lot of people go, oh, well, this is, it worked with Frank, but there's no sort of history. But actually, this will now be the third time we've done it. And so whether the third time works as well as the first and second time. We'll see. But
There's no
I'm
way of
not.
knowing. I mean,
No,
reality
no,
is
exactly.
he might be incredible.
Yeah,
He might be. I don't know. Any of us could know. He speaks really well, which I'm not surprised about at all. So for those who don't know, like he's had a playing career at top level. He's played for lots of Blackburn, Wolves. I think it was at Hull, and obviously won sort of like 30 odd caps. I think for the Republic of Ireland. But many might remember him from doing coverage on the EFL's
yeah, Sky.
coverage on Sky, and it always come across pretty well. So the fact that he was in front of a camera is no surprise. Not like you've just taken a free kick coach. He's used to being kind of media trained in front of the camera. So the fact he said all the right things, spoke well, not surprised. He comes across very calm.
Yeah,
I think the club wants to kind of echo that message at the moment of calm. It's business as usual. We've accepted for a while this might happen. It's business as usual, and trying to keep kind of a calm representation out there. And I think Andrews reflects that quite well. How it equates to football management, not got a Scooby Doo, but he definitely
no,
benefits from knowing all the players already because he's worked with them
yep,
all. I did note one line in his interview where he said it'll be a benefit. He said some people might not be happy though, so there might be a few people who don't get on with him. He openly admitted that himself, and obviously you get treated differently. You're not the free kick coach now. You're the manager. You're the guy who's got to pick the team at the weekend. He might do really well. Ultimately, what you've got to deal with this summer is you know what people are saying on the outside because you already know from the messages you've had.
yeah,
And you look at the 17 teams that have stayed here from last season and you go, right, Tottenham can't be that bad again. Touch wood. West Ham under Potter and a full pre-season may well improve. Everton have improved. Manchester United will obviously improve. We look at the likes of Fulham, Bournemouth a little bit like yourselves and go, as long as the manager stays there, they're going to be fine. So you're looking around and going, who can go down? And people have got a reason at the moment to suggest it might be you.
yeah,
That's what's going to happen. So some people are going to tip you up to go down based on its change, and we don't know what it's expected. And I think Leeds might be quite good. So who am I going to pick? Is it Wolves? Is it Brentford? There's not a lot of choice elsewhere. So I think people will do that. There's also obviously a little bit of concern about some players moving on. So this is the bit where I go timestamp. It's 6:30 on Monday evening, and this isn't going out till Wednesday. Bryan Mbeumo is going to Manchester United, isn't he, Tom?
yeah. Wouldn't be. Yeah, surely they'll end up stumping up the money that we want, and he'll go. He's
It
made
does
it
sound
clear that
like it does sound like it's there or nowhere.
yeah, no, it does. From what Phil Giles said, it's basically he said that he'll go to United and isn't interested in joining yourselves or Newcastle or anybody else. So it sounds like Man United are happy to pay the ridiculous amount of wages that he's after, basically. And yeah, if they basically put in few more million by the sounds of it, it's there or thereabouts. So I think it's at 55 and 7.5 add-ons at the moment, but
You,
obviously that's just reported.
you want at least the Cunha money, which is kind of being reported, isn't it? It's what 62 and a half as a minimum. That's what
Yeah,
I've
well,
heard.
the newest one I've seen is that because now Forest have bid 55 mil for Alanga, reportedly, that we might even want a little bit more because they're saying, well, Mbeumo's worth more than Alanga, so then surely he's worth more than 55, worth more than the
You,
62 and a half.
you're a club we've mentioned in the past and said, despite the small with respect nature of your football club, you will not get bullied in the transfer market.
No,
We've seen that before. I'm sure it's something you and I have discussed as well. So yeah, Brentford would have their valuation. I think they'll have said to Bumo, look, if this is the valuation, if it gets matched, you can go.
yeah, and I think he's the character that also I think he said, he'll go to United and then if not, he'll be back. And I think that's what Phil Giles has put in the media is probably true because I don't think that's something you. I mean, if you lied about that, then obviously that would just get back to Mbeumo's agents and it would end up being a right farce and everything. So yeah, you can only take it really at face value.
The good news is obviously the club has adapted in the past. I already spoke on this podcast about replacing Tony. It feels like years ago he left,
Yeah,
like to us
yeah,
on the outside. And it's maybe that's part to do with the ban as well, maybe. But it feels like he left a long time ago. And you've used to, the first year you missed out on coming up in the playoffs, replacing like Watkins and Ben Rama. As a club, you've been used to doing Besri Concerts, another one. You've been used to doing this for a number of years. So does that give you hope that the club will just get it right again, or is it
yeah.
major blow? Talisman's leaving again.
No, no. It's someone's willing to pay the right amount of money for him. we'll let him go and get the next one in. Um, I mean, there's been the few ones which haven't gone amazingly well, but even the ones that didn't, you think in the first season they go. I think Damsgaard's a great example. In the first season, everyone's going like, well, we need to get rid of him and we need to get someone else in. And this season he's been incredible. So it just seems that they, knock on wood again, they do seem to get it right. And 9 times out of 10 we pick a good one. And so hopefully we can find the next Bryan Mbeumo and then sell him for another 100 million maybe this time.
The club will invest, won't they? In the sense, it's not a case of Bumo goes and you just hope that Igor Thiago is going to kind of like step in
Yeah.
as the new nine and maybe Vissa goes wide. There's no concern here about the club needs the money or anything in any way, is there?
No, and I think, well, that takes you on to the Norgard deal, really. And I'm a bit disappointed that we've accepted such a low amount of money, or, well, again, reportedly. But it sounds like he's pretty much gone. And it's like, well, if you look at the PSR things, I think we can spend something stupid if we wanted to. It's something like 200 odd million. And it's like, do you really need to accept 11 million for Christian Norgaard?
I suppose
Um,
that's probably, I would guess, that the player's gone. I'm 31, opportunity, can't say no.
yeah,
I mean, it's highly likely they've obviously confirmed the sign of Martin Zubimendi.
yeah,
That assuming Norgard is going to go to Arsenal, which was kind of like a done deal within hours, like
yeah.
10 days or so ago. I presume it will happen, but I presume he's also not going to be first choice there.
No, exactly. So
And it's your captain, right?
yeah, exactly. I mean, the captaincy is not so bad. It's more the sort of, because I think there's other players there who have leadership potential, but obviously you're taking out someone who's been there for a long time and is obviously a key part of the leadership group. And for that amount of money, it's like, surely you at least hold out for a little bit more. Because I think, if you said even if it was like 15, 16, at least it's 11 just seems so low for someone that's last year was, again, I think he missed 3 or 4 games in total and was key in our midfield. And yeah, that's
Yeah,
um,
I'd almost find that as bigger concern. Because you had other players who scored a lot of goals last year. I mean, Visser and Sade
yeah.
were both in
Mhm.
double figures, for example. So I don't think scoring goals, even if Boomer goes, it's not a huge concern. I think it's more the stability of manager going and maybe captain going at the same
Yeah.
time doesn't feel ideal. I did want to pull you up on. I saw an interview with Phil Giles speaking about Norgard going, and he said we couldn't stand in the way of him having the
Yeah.
opportunity to win trophies. Have you seen that?
I mean, he obviously hasn't watched this year's Premier League or the last few because he's gone to finish second again, hasn't he?
Tom, we hadn't even planned to do this, so thank you for saving
You're
me. That
welcome.
means you can get burnt in the comments
That's
rather
fine,
than me.
absolutely fine.
I wasn't even thinking that. Well done. Um, but did you take anything negative on that in the sense of you're so close to qualifying for Europe last year? Okay, he wants to go and win trophies. We're going to let him go. It did sound a bit like a soundbite of we can't.
No, I think it's, we've got to be realistic as well as a club. And you're competing against, you've already said it, the top 7, 8 clubs financially. When you think about it, we will never be able to spend the amount of money that, Chelsea spends, Man City spend, Liverpool, these clubs that are spending crazy amounts of money. And so it would have to take a situation where, for example, we qualify for like the Conference League and we get a good draw and we get through that, or we have a season like what Palace have done with the FA Cup or something like the League Cup, where obviously Newcastle, a club that's also being able to spend a bit more money at the moment, but they've obviously won their first cup in so many years. So it needs something like that and everything to fall in the right place. And I guess from Christian Norgaard's point of view, you know, potentially that doesn't happen in his career, because that would be, again, we're talking about it would be Brentford's first major trophy ever. So it would have to be something exactly what Palace has done and what everyone has said. Um, Rory and obviously all the other guys from Palace, it is one of the best things that's ever happened to them, but it's one thing that's happened, you know, maybe will happen once in a million that they've got the right draw and they've won the right games against the right people at the right time. So
They beat City, they beat Villa. You've
yeah,
got the
no, I mean,
history of
absolutely.
beating
Oh
big
no,
clubs.
absolutely.
You finished
They
above them
might,
last year.
and it might be next season we go and win the FA Cup and Christian Norgaard doesn't win anything with Arsenal, but it's.
Please.
I mean, that would be.
I'd take that
I,
as my season now.
we'd have to loan him back for the final just to let him have it. So no, I mean, I think I don't see that as a negative. I see that as a realistic. You don't want, and I think that's what he's always been, and I think he's always been up front with the fans. That is, you know. let's be realistic. Who's more likely to win a trophy in the next 5 years, Brentford or Arsenal? Was clearly and obviously
Yeah, of
Arsenal.
course.
I was going to say Brentford then, but that was a slip of the tongue. Um,
And it's perfectly understandable that he's going, and it's perfectly understandable that the club's letting him go. It was one, I didn't think that there was many probably people who were kind of running a football operations at a Premier League club could have got away with saying that. And that's why I wanted to highlight as well. So I imagine even if say someone had said that at West Ham, they'd go mad, mate.
yeah,
So I mean, you know where you're at, and that's fine. Your growth of a football club is the most important thing, and I think it's going to be a challenge in 12 months for you. But yeah, Andrews might be absolutely great, mate. There's just no way of knowing. By the time we do correspondent week, maybe we'll have a better idea. A couple more before we finish.
yeah.
On Norgard, assuming he does go, who would take over as captain?
I am going to go with Collins. He's done a lot more interviews over the last year, and he just seems to be becoming a real leader in the dressing room. I really like him. I think last season he was incredible. I mean, he didn't miss a minute. I think it was only him and Van Dijk that played every single minute of Premier League football last year, and he was really, really good. I've seen links with him to Tottenham myself, actually, but they've seemed to be they've been like immediately like that's not happening. Yeah, he's not going anywhere, and so I think for those reasons, it sounds like he'll be the next captain.
Yeah, it's not to say Tottenham won't buy anyone from Brentford, but it is such a lazy story narrative.
Yeah.
We bought about 12 players from Celtic in like the month after we appointed Ange, mate. So there probably will be a little bit more of that as well. Are Rico Henry and Aaron Hickey fit? I mean, I
Uh,
know they're not trained at the moment, but do we expect them to be?
I honestly have no idea. I'd love for them to both be back, but yeah, I think it was one of those where it just seemed to be getting closer and closer to their getting back. And it was like, oh, Hickey might be back for some games towards the end of the season. Obviously, Rico played a few, and it just hasn't really materialized yet. I think Rico picked up another little injury, but fingers crossed. Hopefully, they've had a good summer and they'll be back in and around the team next year because they were missed. They have been missed.
Yeah, it's
All
worth
of
saying. Obviously, you've made the Coyote deal
yeah,
permanent as
that's
well,
great. Yeah,
and he impressed very much in the last few games of the season. Mark Flecken's gone,
yep.
to the sadness of Suj particularly and many other an FPL manager, or match actually to the delight of many an FPL manager. You liked him though, didn't you?
Yeah, I thought he was getting better and better. I thought last season he was excellent, to be honest. I think the defense let him down at certain points more so than him. I think it was just getting to the point where this season I'd been like, yeah, I'd be happy with Mark Flecken in goal again this season. But again, he's a certain age, and Leverkusen came knocking and gave us a good fee for him, and we obviously got a good deal for Kelleher at the same time. So it all made sense to do it, and I've not seen enough of Kelleher to go if he's going to be bad or not. But my friends that I've been speaking to are Liverpool fans say that yeah, he's great, and we've got a big upgrade from what we had with Flecken, and I was a big Flecken fan. So if that's the case, then I'm very happy.
He stood in extremely well when he
Yeah,
covered for Liverpool, and that's real pressure to do that. So, yeah, no reason why you shouldn't be comfortable with that as your new number one this summer.
and obviously a good
Um,
Irish partnership with Collins at the back
yes, under a new Irish manager, by the way,
under a new.
mate.
Oh yeah, we've gone from Denmark FC to the Republic of Ireland FC. So
We'll obviously speak about this more on Correspondent Week as well, but Aston Villa, Chelsea, Manchester United, Manchester City, Liverpool, Newcastle. You know what that is, don't you?
our finals. No, it's our first six home games. Is that right?
Hmm.
Yeah,
It's like complete throw opposite of last season.
last year. Yeah, exactly.
That makes me nervous to have those six home games at the start under a new manager. I think that could have been a lot kinder for you. That
Yeah,
said, there'll obviously be some winnable away games in there as well, but you have got a pretty tough start, mate. Uh,
yeah.
Thank you very much, Tom. We'll see you on Correspondent Week. Anything you want to plug before we finish? Any Brentford content or anything?
Oh no, I'm actually. I will plug something for once. I'm doing a 100-kilometer triathlon at the start of August. I've done the three challenges this year for charity, for prevent breast cancer. I did a half marathon back in May. I did a 100K cycle last week, and I'm doing a 100K triathlon. Foolishly, I've not done one that long ever, so I've only
When's
ever done
this?
one. So The 5th of August, I think it is Sunday, the 5th of August. So
You sure you're doing correspondent week, mate?
yeah, and well, I might be in bits, but I'll be doing it. Just I'll be in absolute bits to try and
It's
talk to you.
definitely not
So
Sunday the 5th because correspondent week's Monday the 4th. So it's definitely not Sunday the
oh,
5th.
fine. Then it's the first August, first Sunday in August, I think it is. So yeah, that's the only thing I'll plug. So yeah, if anyone wants to donate for that
What's your
charity, it's a great.
target? Come on, what's your target?
My target, I want to do it in sub 6 hours if I can.
No, I meant your money, you mug.
Oh, money. I think I've put in £1,000 to try and get towards, so we're getting there. I think we're
Right.
about two-thirds of the way through.
Tom's gonna give me the link. I'm gonna put it in the bio. Right. Patron's free this month, so donate some money to Tom's fund. There you go, everyone.
Thank you.
Tom, thank you very much, mate. I'll see you on Correspondent Week. As always, everyone, be nice to each other. Smash a like, hit the sub for everyone on the audio. Cue music, please. Man child.